Hello everyone, I'm Amatullah Batriwala and today I will be assessing the practicality of UBI in India. Universal Basic Income is a policy that has a myriad of benefits in different spheres. It can prove beneficial for providing an economic security net for the unemployed and also encourage entrepreneurial ventures among the middle income groups. However, today I will be focusing mostly on its benefits with respect to alleviating poverty. Before I start off with my discussion of the universal basic income, I would like to take a couple of minutes to actually talk about poverty. Poverty is an umbrella term which considers many factors, including non economic ones. There are many economic schools of thought with differing definitions and understanding of poverty and alleviation from poverty. Today, I will be considering the neoliberal ideas inspired by J.M. Keynes. In this, greater importance is given to the government as a machinery for lifting people out of poverty. In terms of determining poor people, I will be referring to the international line of poverty, which is set at $0.90 as of 2011. While India also has its own measure of poverty in the form of Tendulkar line, the criticism for it being too low has made me decline it for this particular discourse. Taking the international line will also enable me to bring in a global perspective to the issue. I will also be briefly looking at the idea of multidimensional poverty, which looks at three complexities in the lives of poor people, especially in the main areas of health, education, and standard of living. Now, coming to UBI. The Government of India over the years has rolled out numerous welfare schemes for the alleviation of poverty. Some of them, like PDS and MG Narega, are quite popular. However, when you go through the list, we see that there are numerous overlaps in different schemes like Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana and Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gramin Kaushal Yojana. Some are also quite inefficient and cause a huge fiscal burden on the state. Additionally, the benefits of these schemes can be quite hard to track. I do not disagree with the fact that these schemes are helpful, but I also believe that they can be an administrative burden and are not sustainable. It is against this backdrop that I consider a scheme like Universal Basic Income to be the answer for improving the lives of poor people while also contributing to the overall economic growth of the country. Universal basic income is an economic proposition which aims to provide direct, in cash transfers to everyone within a geographical region. Broadly, three components can be considered in UBI: universality, unconditionality, and direct cash transfers. The idea of UBI that I want to discuss today doesn't follow two of these three preconditions. They are universality and unconditionality. The reason that I do not believe in universality is simple. The cash shouldn't go to those who don't need it. Not only is it a financial burden, but it also increases the purchasing power of people who already have enough to sustain themselves. This may lead to either conspicuous spending on a micro level or inflation on a macro level. The latter would ultimately make the money that the poor received comparatively useless due to an increase in prices. Unconditionality is another factor that I don't entirely support. This discourse was inspired by my economics professor, Dr. Menezes, who introduced me to the example of Brazil. Brazil has opted for conditional cash transfers, where the people have to fulfill certain conditions to gain the benefits. This helps on two levels. On a psychological level, it removes the hesitance for a person who might view it as free money, and on a social level, it contributes to the overall growth of the society. Therefore, some preconditions should be attached to these transfers in a way that benefits the society as a whole. Additionally, the actual amount delivered should be indexed to the inflation rates. The policy that I want to propose for cash transfers should be aimed at the poorest of the poor, that is, the people below the poverty line, and certain prerequisites should be attached to these transfers, which could be focused in areas of health, education, or even personal development. These conditions should not be economic in nature. One instance of such a condition could be the enrollment of children in school or regular health checkups for pregnant women and compulsory vaccines for children. This would help strengthen the socio-cultural factors of the community. Another thing to be considered here should be that every person of the household receives the same amount of payments and in their individual names. However, a household will receive these transfers for only 2 children. This limitation would be necessary to avoid population explosion and could also serve as an incentive for family planning. There should also be provisions for when someone would stop being eligible for this scheme. Some considerations in this regard could include the long term economic sustainability of the family. The threshold for stopping these transfers should be determined in a way that people do not gain less outside of the scheme as compared to what they were gaining while being a part of it. I would now like to talk about the implementation of this conditional basic income scheme. One of the biggest factors to assess in terms of practicality is the financial burden it would have on the GDP of the country. According to the Economic Survey of 2016-17, which dedicated an entire chapter to the proposal of universal basic income, this burden was pegged at 4.6% of the GDP, while the current social welfare schemes cost 3.7%. While the question of where the extra funding will come from remains, economists have proposed adjusting the current subsidies and expenditure to fill this gap. Bringing in the help of international organizations could also be a way to solve this problem. Another question to consider would be the delivery mechanism of these transfers. While speaking about this, ex-PM Dr. Singh in 2012 had supported the idea of a unique ID linked to the bank accounts, which would help make these payments directly into the bank account of the beneficiaries. While banks are the ideal choice, we cannot refute the fact that rural areas do not have a very good banking structure. Additionally, people might have to travel miles and depend upon others to actually receive the cash. In this case, I believe localized help in the form of citizen engagement through NGOs and volunteering students can help strengthen this infrastructure. In spite of this, the long-term aim should be to make all these transfers digital and make the people self-reliant in withdrawing these transfers. One of the most important concerns of the policy, especially cash transfers instead of services, is the wasteful spending that might be undertaken by the beneficiaries, especially the males, in the form of drinking and gambling. While I believe that the poor are prudent in their spending choices, a more tangible proof can be viewed in the outcomes of the pilot scheme which was undertaken in 2 villages in Madhya Pradesh. The final results presented by SEWA, the organization which undertook these projects, showed an overall improvement in health, nutrition, and economic stability of the family. This in part goes to show the wise spending choices of the targeted beneficiaries. However, I do believe that there should be corrective measures in case of continuous wasteful spending or for not meeting the conditionality criteria. One instance of a corrective measure could be the slashing of the provided income for a couple of months. If the family still refuses to show improvement, the payments can be suspended altogether. Brazil's Bolsa Familia scheme is a case in point. In line with corrective measures, another arm of this policy should be the setting up of an independent review committee with adequate representation from both the academia as well as the bureaucrats. The reason I propose this committee is so that it can monitor the behavior and the spending patterns of the beneficiaries. It would allow constant upgradation of the scheme by considering and implementing on-ground feedback and suggestions. If we talk about the geographical location and targeted beneficiaries, I believe this scheme should be implemented in phases, especially in a country with different demographics and economic needs like India. The point of focus can be rural poor because of comparative stability in living places as well as community living spaces. The conditional basic income scheme should ideally look at bottom-up implementation starting from individual districts and state and then moving on to a national level. According to a UNDP report of 2018, 4 states that face acute multidimensional poverty are Bihar, Jharkhand, Madhya Pradesh, and Uttar Pradesh. These could be the states where the implementation of pilot schemes can be looked at. This kind of implementation would also allow for a good feedback mechanism and better development and implementation of the policy on a national level. Before winding up, I would also like to talk about some of the behavioral and social changes that can be brought about by this policy, aside from mere economic upliftment. One of the benefits that the policy can cause is gender equality. In rural areas, women seldom go out to work. They do not have any means of income and are financially dependent on their husbands. When both the partners will get the same amount of money, it could result in greater autonomy for the woman and an increase in self confidence. The policy could also have a positive impact on migration in the long term. If workers are able to find basic means of sustenance, they may be open to the idea of staying in their home state and finding better employment there. It may additionally encourage them to start entrepreneurial ventures with the backing of a basic income. It could also help to free the beneficiaries from the debt traps of local landlords. It would ultimately result in the economic stability of the village. A system like this would also save the poor from economic shocks like the current pandemic. However, all these are long term benefits of the scheme provided that it is implemented effectively and efficiently. This is just a glimpse of the possibilities that a policy like conditional, or for that matter, even universal basic income holds, provided that it is adjusted to fit the needs of India by taking into account some of the things that I have outlined so far. If this doesn't happen, the policy may just get added to a long list of failed experiments. I believe with the economic shock in the form of COVID 19 and also the census coming up next year, now is a very good time to discuss the merits and possible implementation of basic income in India.